Whisper, Grandpa. Present a horror story. The kindly grandfather. A light in the darkness. The woods were an endless sea of trees, their skeletal branches clawing at the darkening sky. Sofia and Mia trudged through the underbrush, their breaths puffing in the cold air. The fading sunlight painted the forest in hues of deep orange and grey, but the beauty did little to quell their growing anxiety. "This is bad," Sofia muttered, glancing at her phone. The screen was dark, no signal, and the battery was nearly dead. "I told you to download the map," Mia shot back, her voice laced with frustration. "Stop blaming me. We're both lost." They had set out on what was supposed to be a simple hiking trip, a weekend getaway from the pressures of college life. But somewhere along the way, they'd wandered off the trail. Hours of walking had yielded no signs of civilization, only the oppressive silence of the woods. Then, like a beacon, they saw it, a faint yellow glow peeking through the trees. "Is that a house?" Mia whispered, hope flickering in her voice. "I think so," Sofia replied, her relief tinged with caution. "Let's check it out." As they approached, the cabin came into view. It was a modest structure, its wooden walls weathered by time, and moss creeping up the edges. The light spilling from the window was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the cold, dark forest. Mia knocked on the door, her knuckles grazing the rough wood. A moment later it opened to reveal an elderly man with a kind face. His white hair framed a weathered visage, and his eyes crinkled with a smile. "Well, hello there," he said warmly. "You poor things look like you've been through the ringer. Come in, come in." The cabin's interior was a world away from the cold wilderness outside. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, its warmth filling the room. The air smelled of pine wood and cinnamon, a comforting blend that immediately put the girls at ease. "I'm Grandpa Joe," the old man said, gesturing for them to sit. "What brings you out this way?" "We got lost hiking," Mia explained, sinking into a chair by the fire. "Lost, huh? These woods can be tricky. Lucky for you, you found me," Joe chuckled, his laughter low and wheezy. He handed them steaming mugs of cocoa, the sweetness a welcome balm to their frayed nerves. The girls sipped in silence, their initial wariness fading as Joe regaled them with tales of his youth. "I've lived out here for years," he said, his voice filled with nostalgia. "Used to have a wife, kids, even grandkids, but time changes everything." "What happened to Tim?" Sofia asked, her curiosity piqued. Joe's expression darkened for a moment, but the smile quickly returned. Life takes people in different directions, but enough about that. You must be starving. Let me fix you something to eat." He shuffled into the kitchen, leaving the girls alone. "I think he's harmless," Mia whispered, though her eyes lingered on the odd knickknacks cluttering the shelves, figurines, old photos and jars filled with unidentifiable objects. "Yeah," Sofia replied, though her tone was less certain. Dinner was hearty, a thick stew filled with tender chunks of meat and vegetables. The girls ate hungrily, their earlier suspicion dulled by Joe's kindness and the warmth of the meal. "It's getting late," Joe said after they finished. "You're welcome to spend the night here. I've got a spare room in the back." The girls hesitated, but finally agreed. The thought of venturing back into the dark forest was far less appealing than staying in the cozy cabin. The spare room was small but comfortable, with a single bed covered by a thick quilt. However, as the firelight dimmed and the cabin grew silent, Sofia found herself unable to sleep. Mia was out cold, her soft snores filling the room. Sofia lay awake, her mind racing. Something about Joe's stories didn't sit right with her. The way he spoke of his family, the sadness in his eyes that seemed too deep to be simple loneliness. A faint creak drew her attention. It was coming from outside the room. Curiosity gnawed at her, and despite her better judgment, she slipped out of bed. The hallway was dark, but a faint light seeped through the crack of a door slightly ajar. She pushed it open to reveal a set of stairs leading down into darkness. The basement was colder than the rest of the cabin, its air damp and tinged with an odd metallic smell. Sofia descended cautiously, her heart pounding. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Shelves lined the room, each one crammed with jars. Sofia leaned closer, her stomach churning as she realized what was inside. Scraps of fabric, locks of hair, and other grotesque mementos. Her breath hitched when she saw a row of photographs pinned to the wall. They were of young women, each one smiling brightly, their lives frozen in time. A sudden noise made her spin around. Joe stood at the top of the stairs, his face hidden in shadow. "What are you doing down here?" he asked, his voice devoid of the warmth it had carried before. I heard something," Sofia stammered, backing away. Joe descended the stairs slowly, his presence filling the small space. "Some places are better left unexplored," he said, his tone menacing. He reached out, his hand gripping her shoulder tightly. Joe led Sofia back upstairs, his jovial demeanor snapping back into place as if nothing had happened. "You should get some rest," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. Sofia nodded, retreating to the room where Mia was still asleep. As dawn broke, Sofia shook Mia awake. "We have to leave," she whispered urgently. "What's going on?" Mia asked groggily. "I'll explain later. Let's just go." They crept to the door, but as they reached it, Joe appeared, his expression dark and unreadable. "Leaving already?" he asked, his voice soft but cold. The door slammed shut and everything went black. When Sofia and Mia woke, they were tied to chairs in the basement. Joe stood before them, a knife in his hand and a wistful look on his face. "You remind me of my granddaughters," he murmured. "They were my world, but they left me like everyone does." He stepped closer, the blade gleaming in the dim light. Before he could act, the cabin door upstairs burst open. 2 officers stormed in, their shouts echoing through the house. "Drop the knife, Joe!" Joe froze, his face a mix of rage and despair. The girls were untied and led outside. "How did you find us?" Sofia asked one of the officers. "A missing persons report," he replied. "This isn't the first time someone's disappeared in these woods." As they drove away, Sofia glanced back at the cabin. Joe stood in the doorway, watching them leave. For a moment, she thought she saw him smile. The end. If you enjoyed this terrifying tale, don't forget to hit that like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever encountered a strange, mysterious person in the woods? I'd love to hear your stories. And if you want more spine-chilling content like this, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a creepy story. Thanks for watching, and remember, not everything is as it seems.